What are we doing, guys? Good to go, Evan? All right. Got to wake yourselves up. So sit nice and tall. Feet planted firmly on the ground. Your body posture is also a lot of times going to determine how you feel, right? And it has a feedback loop too with your hormones. We're going to be going over hormones and whatnot tonight. So nice and tall. I want you to take your shoulders, try to get them up to your ears. Come back down. We're going to get 10 of them. 10 shrugs. After that, we're going to take our jaw, and you're going to be opening your jaw as big as you can, right? So actually the strongest pound-for-pound muscle in your body is the masseter muscle. It's in your jaw. But a lot of times we don't take the jaw through a full range of motion. So you're going to open your mouth, big as you can, back down. Get 5 of them. Might feel a little bit weird, but it's good to take every joint in your body through a full range of motion. Last thing we're going to do before we dive into it, you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. But when you do that, your belly should expand. Then you're going to breathe out through your mouth. Belly should shrink. Go ahead and do 10 of them. In through the nose, out through the mouth. It's a great way to get into what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. It helps you relax, digest, sleep, get ready for sleep. Okay? Try to feel that belly come out. Try to keep your chest still, guys. Okay. So it's one of my YouTube videos from a long time ago. You see 2012. At this point, it's probably got 500,000 views. And I think the reason people like stuff like that I do is I experiment on myself, always have. So I've always been into direct knowledge. I don't just read something and then try to tell you guys about what I read, right? I learn it, or I do it, and then I learn it, and then I teach it. So the same thing goes with testosterone. I began using testosterone back in 2010. So I'm going to be going over that. Before we get to that, I'll take about 40 minutes tonight. I'll answer all your questions at the end. The restroom is back there if anybody needs it. If you need water, there's waters in the fridge. We got a water fountain right there. Tonight, going to go over the myths in the history of testosterone. We're going to go over the benefits of it and then how you can begin this process. That's really where I find I have so many guys that reach out to me that want to do this, but they don't know where to start. They have no idea how to go about this. It's not as complex as people think it is. So that was in 2007 at one of my bodybuilding shows. I competed naturally, meaning no testosterone, no anabolic steroids for 5 shows. Right, so that was one of those shows. Now, dieting and whatnot to get into that shape naturally, you really mess up your hormonal system. Like you are messed up, and it takes months, if not years, to recover from that. So after I did, at the time, my final show in 2008, I was curious, right? I said, let me go talk to Dr. Patel. Dr. J. Patel used to be in Hillsborough. I was going to him since I was a kid. We're good friends now. Talked to him about it. He said, yeah, let's test, let's get, do your blood work. Let's see where you're at. And it was at that point, he was all for it. I was all for it. We dove into it, and I began supplementing with testosterone. So that, again, goes back to 2010. So now I've got 12 years under my belt and hundreds of men that I've helped come along this path. A lot of men, a lot of stuff that I teach, some of you guys know, is based in mind mapping. So the brain needs clarity to move forward. One of the things that's going to hold the brain back or you back from taking action is a lack of clarity. So at the end of the seminar tonight, hopefully you guys have all the clarity you need to go forward if this is something you want to do, and you take that step. But you're not going to have any lack of clarity after this. It's Jaws, a movie that I really, really like. 4 to 5, okay, on average, around the world, shark fatalities each year. I think last year there was 12. There was an uptick in that. So not that many. With testosterone, let me be very clear, testosterone is anabolic steroids. We're going to go over that tonight because the media, sports complexes, right, sports organizations have really tried to make it this evil word. Okay, anabolic, first of all, means anything that makes your body grow. So you guys know I'm really into fasting. The thing we're trying to control with that is insulin. Insulin is the most anabolic hormone in your body, far more than testosterone, far more. Anabolic is growth, catabolic is breaking you down. Most people are very familiar with catabolic steroids like prednisone or cortisone shots. Those are far, far more harmful to your body than anabolic steroids or testosterone, far more. They break your tissue down. So going back to that Jaws slide, so you have since let's take this time period I have on here, 22 years. If you took the average shark deaths over that, right, you got 110 shark fatalities. So Journal of Neuropharmacology, 1990 to 2012. On record, 19 deaths attributed to anabolic steroids. 19. That's it. Okay? People think that you're going to take it, it is the safest drug by far that one can take. Far more than statins. Statins will rip up your brain, give you muscular pain. A lot of bad things happen with that. Incredibly safe. Now I say, where are all the bodies? There's many men that you guys know that are already using testosterone. If you look at sports, any high-level sport, right, it's kind of the secret, and I'm a big proponent of using testosterone, obviously. But 95% of pro athletes are using testosterone or designer steroids or growth hormone. If you talk to anybody that's in the know, 95% of them. You cannot compete or recover at that level. Think about baseball players. They're traveling, they're flying around the country in this metal tube, which is a huge stress, 35,000 feet in the air. They're traveling around to the West Coast from the East Coast. They get off, play 3 games, fly to another city. All these stressors, the body cannot recover from that unless they're using anabolic substances. So it's really for performance, right, for those guys. But all the bodies, and if you know that 95% of them are using, and this has been going on for decades, where are all the pro athlete dead bodies that are dropping dead from anabolic steroids? They don't exist. They don't exist, despite what the media would have you believe that it's, this witch hunt, and it seems like it's calmed down a little bit. But if you guys remember back when McGuire and Sosa were going after the home run record, which I think was the best season of all time, they vilified those guys. But that's what we want to see from pro athletes, right? Now, McGuire might have been using more than he needed, but I don't think he was. He did what he wanted to do as far as breaking the home run record at that time. Okay, so this. Around World War II, there's different discrepancies as far as when anabolic steroids entered the scene. Somewhere in the 1930s, the Germans had developed them. Okay, Eastern German bloc started to develop them. It was really for muscle wasting disease and whatnot. But by the 1956 Olympics, and the Germans are on record with this, they were using heavily. So these have been in sports since the 50s. Now, if you look at that stat right there, now if you just look at that stat, this baseball player, anybody know who that's referring to? So that's home runs all the way to the right. Look at the years all the way to the left. Roger Maris, right? So he held the home run record before McGuire now. Now, if you look at this, guys, 19, 16, 39, 61, 33, 23, 26. I don't have proof that he was using anabolic steroids, but that's not normal to have that big spike right there and then to come back down to reality. So my point is, these guys, even the purists and whatnot, these guys were using back then. People just weren't aware of it. In 1990, so that's Louis Simmons. Louis passed recently. He was one of my strength and conditioning mentors, great guy. He's in one of my books. But he was in, it's Bigger, Stronger, Faster. It's a really good documentary about this whole topic. I would suggest that if you're interested, you watch it. The guys do a great job. But they interviewed Louis. And one of the things that Louis says at that point, so that movie's from like 15 years ago. He says, you know what? He goes, I've been using anabolics or testosterone for 40 years, straight. And what he says, though, is my morals aren't your morals aren't my morals, don't judge me for doing this. I don't care what you do, don't worry about me, right? And the reason I tell you that little story, in 1990, they became a class 3 drug. Class 3 drug. And it was really to try to get them out of sports a little bit. So it was really out of a moral issue. That's what it was for these people. It was getting it out as a moral issue. It had nothing to do with safety. Nothing to do with safety, as I told you, and I'll go further into that, some of the myths with that. So one of the things, and I'll refer you, Dr. Kuda couldn't be here tonight, but I'll refer you guys to him at the end. He'll tell you the same thing. Prostate cancer is one of the things that you're going to hear. If I go on testosterone, I'm going to get prostate cancer. There's been so many studies that have already disproven this. The holy grail of testosterone, so TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. In prostate research data, they completely disprove this theory. And they've actually proven that low testosterone, high estrogen is linked to prostate cancer. Low testosterone. So I want to keep that in mind. Heart attacks. So a lot of people have heard these myths. Oh, do testosterone, I'm going to drop dead of a heart attack. The only concern with these is potentially men 65 or older that have pre-existing heart conditions. And the only reason you want to keep an eye on that, so I'll show you some of the other slides, testosterone will make your blood a little bit thicker. There's a very easy way to deal with it. And you guys would be using a therapeutic dose. It's all about dose and duration. You're not going to be doing thousands of milligrams a week like a bodybuilder would do. Right, you're talking about 100 to 200 milligrams a week. Anybody know who that is? Lyle Zato. So this is another part of where this whole lie came from with testosterone anabolics and that you're going to drop dead. So in bodybuilding circles, you get to learn a lot of weird things. So again, I competed for a long time. You get to know people and came across guys that knew Lyle Zato. So he died in 1992. What's up, Lars? How you doing? And Sports Illustrated, if you remember, ESPN, they try to run, like ABC Wide World of Sports, try to run these stories that he died because of steroid use. He got this brain tumor and died because of steroid use. Now, if you dig deeper, so Lyle Zato, for those of you that remember him, was this macho guy, right? He was the toughest nails macho guy. Lyle Zato, if you again dig deeper, was homosexual. And he developed this brain tumor that is highly found in people that had HIV. But he wasn't going to come out and say that. That goes against his image of this macho guy, right? The easy thing for him to do was kind of pin it on, I'm sure he was using steroids. Again, they all are. 95% of them. But he came out and he kind of went along with it. He wasn't going to come out and say, oh, I have HIV. When he died, they said, oh, it was a steroid use. It had nothing to do with anabolic steroids. So after we turn 25, you're going to start having a dip in your testosterone by about 1% to 2% a year. And testosterone levels nowadays, guys, even if you go back 40 years, they're half of what they were in men because of toxins in the environment, plastics, right? All these things. So we want to start looking at this, and I recommend to guys that, okay, once you turn 25, start getting your blood, start getting it tested. And I'll go over the tests that you should ask your doctor for. But you start getting the dip. Now you have something called pregnenolone, pregnenolone steel. It's a compound that's used to create testosterone or cortisol. So cortisol I talk a lot about with fasting, but that's a stress hormone, right? Cortisol is catabolic, breaks you down. Testosterone builds you up. Pregnenolone is used to make both of those. If we're not getting enough sleep, like most people. If we're overly stressed, which sleep is going to, that's going to exacerbate if we're not getting enough sleep. Pregnenolone is going to go towards building cortisol blocks, not testosterone. And you can see it takes 26 steps to create testosterone off pregnenolone, 1 step to create cortisol. So cortisol, if you're not in the optimal environment, okay, is going to win every time. And you can see why. The body prefers a stress response. It's easier, okay, than fornication. Right? That takes a lot more energy from a metabolic standpoint. And insulin is the raw material that creates androgens. So tying that into fasting, again, you guys know I'm a big fan of fasting. When you become insulin resistant, when you become down the pathway to becoming type 2 diabetic, your body no longer responds to insulin the way it once did. So when you eat, insulin is released to store nutrients within the body, to clear those nutrients, either put them in muscle cells or fat cells. Okay? When you become insulin resistant, testosterone levels are going to drop. So I'm going to show you these questions. Okay, there's actually 10 questions. So I just want you to look at these. And in your head, just think yes or no. This is kind of a test where you can tell, hey, I might be low in testosterone. So do you have decrease in libido, lack of energy, decrease in strength or endurance? Have you lost height? Noticed a decreased enjoyment of life? Sad or grumpy more often than usual? Erections less strong? Recent deterioration in your ability to play sports or work out? Falling asleep after dinner? Recent deterioration in your work performance? Now, most guys are answering one to at least one of them. See you later, Donnie. So that's a real, if you answered to 2 or more of them, then you're probably a candidate for testosterone therapy. And just by your age, too, like I said, you're in that wheelhouse. I love my garbage pail kids. You can see I got some of them over there. This is crazy. If you look at the different labs, and these are total testosterone levels, that's considered the norm. So the top one, we're at 260 to 11, almost 1,200. And it's similar for all of them. This is so stupid because if you're at the low end of that, it is a completely different universe than if you're at the upper limit normal. So the whole goal with testosterone therapy is to get you to the upper limit normal. That's where we want to be. So you'll go, a lot of doctors will do this because you guys got to remember, most doctors have no clue about this stuff. They were not trained in this. They're very prude. They believe some of the lies I already told you. They don't want to touch it. Some doctors won't even test you for this stuff. Right? It should be a standard test for every guy when they go in for their physical. But if you're, let's say, at 300, they'll say, oh, you don't need it. You're normal. You are not normal. You're not functioning optimally. The last time I did a testosterone seminar last year, one of the guys in the audience was a guy that we already got using testosterone. And one of the other guys said, well, what's it like? And he raised his hand, the other guy, and said, he goes, the best way for me to explain it is life is now in high def. And it was a great description. Because when you start using testosterone, you have more testosterone receptors, and that's why I put that picture up there, on your brain than anywhere else in your body. So once you're on about 3 weeks, you're just going to start noticing this more life. It's not a stimulant. I'm not talking about that as far as energy. You're just going to feel like, man, life is better. You're going to wake up easier. You're going to have more a type of get after it attitude. But don't let any doctor tell you you're normal. If you're not in that, now if you were not using and you have had guys that got tested, They might be in the 700 range naturally, which is very rare. Then it's up to them. Hey, do I want to wait a little bit or do I want to start using stuff? I've had 2 guys in the past 12 years, because I look at a lot of blood work for the guys. 2 guys. One of them is a Rutgers football strength coach, one of the strength coaches there. Another one is one of my good buddies, but he's older. He's in his 50s. They had high upper limit naturally. Only 2 guys. It's a rare thing, very rare. I've had guys as low as 9, basically castrate levels, right? So you see the whole end of the spectrum, all different types of symptoms. Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if you guys have watched that show or seen that episode, but that's when he's got the tent in his pants, and his wife's friend thinks he has an erection that he's turned on, and it turns into this whole thing. But I put that up there because testosterone, there's different theories on, is it going to increase your libido? It could or it might not. Now, I'll tell you the key to libido after, again, studying the body for so long. That's up here, right? And it's kind of in the side, but if you can't shut your brain off, right, you have the sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic. You got to be a little bit in a relaxed state before you get worked up with your wife or your spouse, right, or your partner. So it can enhance your libido. It might not, right? It's a lot of guys think, I'm going to get out. Again, it's more for what it does for your brain. And on that note, there was a story I read a long time ago. The guy's having trouble. He's been married now at that point, maybe a decade. He goes to the doctor and he says, hey, I'm having trouble. You know, I don't get excited to have sex with my wife anymore. So he writes him a prescription, goes back, and the next week, 2 weeks, it's great. And the wife is trying to figure out, what the heck did the doctor do to him? Now that he's turned on, he's getting erections, all this stuff. So they would start getting intimate, and then he would go to the bathroom down the hall, and then he would come back. She said, I want to go see what he's doing, to see how he's doing this. She listens, and he's reading a piece of paper. She is not my wife. She is not my wife. She is not. But it shows you it's more about what's up here, guys. Now, a lot of guys, will come and say, I want to do it to get jacked. Again, the doses you're using, it'll change your body composition a little bit. It's not going to change it. You're not going to turn into Arnold, right? So a lot of guys will say, I want to gain a lot of muscle. So gaining muscle, we have something I'll show you coming up, a 6-week program specifically for gaining muscle, but that's about resistance. To explain to you guys, testosterone will help. I'll go over that in a second. But when you're applying resistance to your body, it's a stress. We have to signal your body to come back bigger and stronger. That's done through training. So the easy thing for people to say is that, oh, he's using steroids. These guys that Arnold, they work their tail off. They already have it up here. They don't look like that because they're using anabolics. You don't develop a physique like that. These pro athletes, like these guys, they're working their tail off. But it's gaining muscle is about resistance, time under tension. So if you're into training, okay, a set, if muscle growth is your main focus, should take between 30 and 70 seconds. That's a long time. Most people can't focus for that long, nor do they want to push themselves to that level of discomfort. And you got to be more insulin sensitive. So yes, fasting again, when you fast, it is much easier to put on muscle. You do increase protein synthesis with testosterone. So that's where a little bit of the muscle building benefit will come from. Now again, the dosage that the doctor would have you guys use, it's not going to be that high. You will get some of this stuff going on. So protein, right, is the building blocks for muscles. It's going to increase how quickly they can build up. Now, if you go way higher in the dose, again, so let's say you guys are using 150 milligrams a week. Pro bodybuilder might be using 3,000 milligrams a week. So you can't compare that. Can't compare it. And even at that level, those guys, when those guys die, bodybuilders, it's not from anabolic steroids. They're using amphetamines. They're using insulin. It's very dangerous when you're using that to inject, things of that nature. So this is Dr. Kuda. That is his number. He's got an office here in Hillsborough. He's got an office in East Brunswick. That's normally who I send guys to nowadays. He's a urologist. He's going to check your prostate, which is good. You want to get that checked anyway as we get up to around 40 years old or whatnot. It's good to get that checked. If you go see him, just tell him you're a friend of mine. Tell him what you're interested in. When you call the office, you don't have to explain it to the ladies. Just say, I want to come get a checkup. Don't try to explain this to the ladies that are picking up the phone. When you see him, say, hey, I'm interested. Want to get he'll do your blood work. And if the blood work comes back low, then most likely, I can't put words in his mouth, but if he sees the need, he'll prescribe it for you. And there's other doctors out there too that will do the same thing. Now to give you an idea before I go on to the next slide. So a lot of guys, right, if you're in that normal range, your insurance is going to say, we're not going to cover this, which is fine. Testosterone is so cheap. You can get it as low as $35 for a 10-week supply. Sometimes it might cost you $150. It's very, very low. Think about how much supplements cost you. It is incredibly cost effective if your insurance doesn't cover it. So when you're getting blood work, these are the main things that I would like to see is you have free testosterone. Okay, so free, most doctors aren't going to really look at that. That's what's bioavailable. That's what's available for your body to use. Total is those numbers I showed you before, between like 300 and 1100, 1200. That's total. That's normally what we're looking at to keep things real simple. Then you have something called SHBG, that's sex hormone bonding globulin. If they test for that and that's too high, what happens is that's bonding up with all your free testosterone, and you could use testosterone all you want. It's not going to do anything because it's getting bound up. It can't reach the sites that it needs to get to. And to give you an idea about free testosterone, you want that to be about 2 to 3% of your total testosterone. So I'll give you a way to deal with that in a second. The sex hormone bonding globulin, there's a really great actual natural supplement you can take that kind of soaks that right up and cleans it up. But you have a negative feedback loop. So this is another fear for guys that their testicles are going to shrink. That does happen with some guys. Some guys it doesn't happen, right? It's just a feedback loop. So you have your HPTA axis. You have something called luteinizing hormone. So when you're exogenously or externally putting in testosterone, this is what your body gets signaled. It doesn't have to produce luteinizing hormone anymore. Follicle stimulating hormone doesn't have to be produced. And therefore, because of that, and you don't produce sperm, so testosterone is actually a male birth control. Most people aren't aware of that, okay? Most people are not aware of that. And one of my best friends, just going back to 2011, they were trying to get pregnant with their first child. And I knew that he was using testosterone because I got him started on it. And they're having trouble. They can't get pregnant. I said, well, you're not using the test anymore, right? He goes, no, why would I stop? I said, your doctor didn't tell you that? Again, most doctors don't know this stuff, guys. Came off the test, they got pregnant. So it is a male birth control. There's ways around that too. There's probably only 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 guys that are still having children, maybe 4 if you count me, I'm not sure. So that's not really a concern anyway. But I'm telling you, once you go on testosterone, you go back to that picture of Arnold, the old thing was do a cycle for 10 weeks. Usually you'll get a vial that's going to last you 10 weeks, then come off for 10 weeks. That's the stupidest thing you could do. You go on and you stay on, just like Louis Simmons said. If you feel that much better, and there's so many health benefits, why would you stop? Cycling came from the bodybuilding world. Like Arnold and those guys would cycle, right? And then they would come off when it wasn't contest season. Then the contest would come back around, they would cycle up. So that's where that really came from. So your testicles might shrink a little bit. Again, they might not. If that's a huge concern, there's things you could take for that. So I did not, actually, I got a syringe in the truck. If you guys want me to get it, I can show you. But a lot of times too at the doctors, they'll prescribe you needles that are no good. Typically when you are injecting, you want to hit the first spot that I would inject is the upper outer glute. So if you cut your butt cheek into a quadrant, the upper outer quadrant, right here, that's where you would want to inject, okay? got a lot of muscle right there. There's very, very, very low likelihood of hitting a nerve right there. If you want it to rotate, you can hit your shoulders, your deltoids. So I'll rotate when I'm doing my shots, because over the years, you could build up a little scar tissue. And a lot of the doctors still, guys, I still have a lot of guys that come here. The doctors will send them here for their injections, because a lot of guys don't like needles. So I'll take them in the back bathroom, and it's no problem to me. You know, if the guys don't feel good with it, I'm happy to do it. But you would put the needle all in. So the very first time, I'll tell you, the very first time I did it, 2010, kind of, you know, so at that point, I went to see Dr. Patel to ask him his opinion, but I had already gotten it all from my buddy, right off the black market. So Dr. Patel doesn't tell me anything about how to do it. So I draw, right? I draw out the, Evan, if you want to run in the truck, open the middle console, you can find a syringe in there. Yeah. You would draw out the testosterone. Okay, I didn't bring any tests with me, but I'll show you how this works. And you would have to get all the air out of the needle. Well, I injected basically that much testosterone, that much air. So I'm going through my head thinking, man, I'm going to have an aneurysm. I'm going to have, you know, stroke out or something. At the time, I was still a teacher. So, and me and Devin were dating. But I called my school nurse. She's like, you can be okay. She said, stay at Devin's house because something would have already happened. So I've made a lot of mistakes with this stuff, guys. A lot of mistakes. You know, and again, that's how you learn, though. So when Evan comes back in, here we go. So this is the size needle that I recommend, because you want to get into the muscle belly. Like a 1/2-inch needle, you're not going to get that deep in, especially if you're injecting into your glutes, right? So if I had the testosterone, I would draw it out, okay? So I would draw out, let's say it's 1 ml. So these are marked, okay? You can see needles are marked. So this is a 3 ml syringe. But typically, your dose is going to be between 1/2 ml and 1 ml. It's typically what the doctor will prescribe to you. You put it in. So let's say I'm putting it in, right? You have to always aspirate. This is key. So aspirate means you pull back on the needle, okay? And if you draw blood, which I've only seen happen once out of all the times I've been helping people with this, pull out, re-inject at a different spot, because you've hit a vessel, right? We don't want to inject into a vessel. Now, I've never drawn blood myself, but I have hit a vessel. Again, I've made mistakes doing this. But that's basically, where are we at? Where to go sleep? I don't know what's going on with that, Evan. Any questions on that? When you're done with this, what you would do, okay, you just untwist the top, pull it apart, throw it away. Real simple. Again, if this is a road you guys want to go down, I have my number on the last slide. You guys can always reach out to me, and I'll help you with it. So let me see what's going on with this. Otherwise, I could, yeah.
I think you just have to click the remote on the TV.
Oh, on the TV. I will see. If not, I'll finish without it. Not sure. I'll let you play with it. So, we're almost at the end of this, guys. Supplements. Vitamin D is a great one. Vitamin D is actually a pro-hormone. Okay, great for sperm cell production as well. And there's something called stinging nettle root. So that's the supplement I was telling you about. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to any of the supplement stores. That's great for SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. Take that, it's going to bind it right up. So I highly recommend that you take that if you start using testosterone. It's cheap, easy to use. I think between $750 There you go. Thanks, Evan. And 1,000 milligrams a day. So real simple. So the thing, okay, if there was a huge deal to you that your testicles might get a little smaller again, they might not. Some guys also might get what's called gyno. So some guys are very sensitive, okay, because when your testosterone comes up, your body is very smart. Your estrogen level has to come up. Estrogen is not an evil thing. You do not want to block estrogen. Right? We need it to sleep. At the dosage, there are guys that are very sensitive to that. And I can tell you, me and my brothers all use testosterone. It's not even a thought in our head. Like the body, for us, it's not a concern. But it's something to keep an eye on, okay? Now, HCG is something you could take. So HCG is actually a female fertility drug. Again, a lot of this stuff comes from the bodybuilding world, and now medical literature shows you that this is all correct. But you could take that, okay? It'll kind of bypass that feedback, negative feedback loop that's going on, and you won't have any testicular atrophy. When I told you guys too, so when Devin wanted to get pregnant the first 2 times with the boys, I had to come off testosterone. Now, the very first time I came off testosterone, if that's, again, I don't recommend doing that, but I didn't know better. I came off cold turkey. That was a huge mistake because, again, what happens? Estrogen levels are up here. Now you pull the plug on this. So if you're off test for about 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to take, now you're going to be pretty low, right? Because your body hasn't been producing it. It can restart it. So anyway, the first time I came off cold turkey. Then when she wanted to get pregnant with, when we had our first 2 boys, came off, using, there's a post-cycle therapy, so I would use HCG and something called Clomid. Okay, that's something I could always counsel you guys on. And it kind of reboots your system much quicker. You can take it at the same time as testosterone as well as HCG. So when she wanted to get pregnant again, we had just opened a Flemington gym. It's taking a lot of energy to get that off the ground. She had a miscarriage. She said, you know what? She goes, go. She prefers when I'm on testosterone just because of my mindset. She goes, go back on. We'll try again, down the road. Let's talk to some of my buddies. I said, you know what? I'm going to go back on. I'm going to go on a low dose, like 100 milligrams a week, and I'm going to do my post-cycle therapy at the same time. And guess what? She got pregnant. So now I know I never have to come off again even if she wants to get pregnant. But again, this stuff's all been tested. You could look up the medical literature for yourself. Another thing, again, doctors aren't going to tell you most of the time. When you start, you want to donate blood about at least 3 times a year. It's going to thin your blood out. It's not a huge concern, but you will notice like as far as physical performance, your endurance is going to go up. The reason it goes up is because red blood cell production will go up. Easy way to deal with that, donate blood. So now I'll call it like the 100 Medical Center, schedule an appointment, I go in, donate blood. That's it. Real simple. All right, so before we go over questions, if anybody's interested, I was telling you about the muscle camp thing. This is the first time we're doing this. It's a 6-week program. I'm designing the program. I'm coaching the 2 sessions, and there will be other things you can do on your own. The whole scope of that program, though, I'll be counseling guys if they need help with testosterone, but it's going to be the nutrition piece, the sleep piece, and the training piece, designed to put on 5 to 6 pounds of muscle within 6 weeks. That might sound easy. That is not easy. The training for this is going to be, you got to have it up here. The training is not easy because, again, it's about applying that stress to the body, doing a lot of the techniques, okay, that we don't necessarily do with the masses. Right, so there's always different goals. But if that's something you're interested in, you can see Evan. Evan's our marketing guy with the video in the back. See him. He'll put your name on the list or have you scan a QR code. And when we open the doors for it, we'll reach out to you and you guys would get a discount. Now, that's my cell phone number. If you don't have it, that's my email. What questions do you guys have about testosterone? Any questions? Yeah.
If you go on like just 100 milligrams, when do you notice how big of a difference is it, like for a small dose compared to?
Everybody's different. Some guys can do 100 milligrams. It makes a world of difference. Some guys can do 300 milligrams, and they don't notice much. Because again, we talked about sex hormone bonding, globulin, things of that nature. Some guys and even like a lot of these top-level athletes. So top-level athletes, right, they're born. Yeah, they have to train and practice, but they're born. So a lot of them don't have to use that much. They don't have to use that much, okay? So it's all variable. It's all variable. But I will tell you, when you start, you should notice up here, within about 3 weeks, you should start noticing, man, I feel better. You know, it's a great thing. It's a great thing if you want to enhance the quality of your life. What else we got, guys?
What's the difference between like the injection, like I think they do implants as well?
Don't do the implants. Only do injectable. I've had buddies that have done the implants. They have issues with them. If the body starts wanting to reject them, don't use the gel, don't use the patch. If you're going to do it, and pills are not an option. You could get anabolic steroids that are pills, very, very harsh on your liver. Injectables bypasses that metabolic route. So injectables is the way to go. Okay, that's what I would definitely recommend. You could ask your doctor about the injectable, the implant, but I don't recommend it. Yeah.
So what is the factors that you should be considering before you think about taking this? I mean, we had a series of questions. You said if you answered yes to any one or a couple, 3 of them or something, you should think about it. But the other determining factor would be the blood test.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you come up with a number like 700, like you said, that's rare,
Then
are you going to say that you should still consider doing this or not?
I've had guys again that have done that, and it's like, okay, do you want to get to that 1100 mark right now? You know, and some of the guys say, oh, I'm going to wait, see if it drops more. I feel pretty good. So it comes down to your quality of life. But yeah.
So if you're not a bodybuilder like myself,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's a benefit. There's still a benefit. Obviously, you feel better.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But so you still would want to take it up to that 1100.
Oh yeah. I want to be in that range. I like to see 900 at least. You know, in that, you know, you don't want to. You could go over the top of it, right? Some guys are getting really sensitive to it. I've had that happen to me before. Just using 1 ml a week, I've been over 1500. So everybody's body's different. But I like to see around that 900, 1100, 1150. That's the sweet spot. But I would look at the blood work is going to tell you a lot, right? And you might be shocked if you get your blood work back at how low the number is, but you shouldn't be. It's normal. A lot of people will say too, I want to increase it naturally. Good luck with that. I've tried it. I've had guys do all types of crazy things. The highest I was able to get mine naturally was about 500, 450, 500.
Just for an example, what would be some of the methods that you
The number one thing would be sleep.
sleep?
Sleep would be by far the first thing I would look at, is sleep. Okay, and then factors, okay, beyond sleep, how stressed are we? You could do stuff, right? So cholesterol is the precursor to all sex hormone production. So then I would be eating more things like whole eggs, ground beef, things of that nature. There's some supplements like yohimbe and other stuff that you could take. It's not going to do much. It's not going to do much.
So high cholesterol works against testosterone production.
No, you need cholesterol to produce testosterone. Yeah, so that's another thing. If you're on statins and whatnot, and you're trying to drive your testosterone levels super low, or your cholesterol, it's going to have a negative impact on this. It's going to have a big negative impact. And cholesterol, so there's, keep an eye out. Somebody, I think you've been there with me and Dr. Andre speak. We go over that whole thing too with cholesterol. Cholesterol is only an issue in your body when there's inflammation present. There's no inflammation. Cholesterol is perfectly normal and needed in the body. Right, that's a whole nother thing, but you don't want to drive to cholesterol levels. You don't want to try to bottom them out. But I would look at your blood work first.
So why, I mean, when you go to the doctor, that's a typical check, is cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
And right away you go on a statin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should be looking at testosterone as well, and
Yeah.
that's not
No.
necessarily true.
So you got to look at, right? Always with anything, right, especially when it comes to your body, Look at the dollars, big pharma. So the studies with cholesterol, the Framingham studies were like the 50s or 60s. That's a huge industry, right? It's a very easy thing for them to give you a pill and lower. Oh, I'm getting better. Look at my cholesterol. So even if you want to look at testosterone, you want to look at cholesterol, you got to look at CRP, C-reactive protein. And Dr. Andre would tell you the same thing. CRP, guys, when you go for your blood work, is a marker of inflammation in your body. You can't tell anything about the cholesterol without that number, without CRP. You're just guessing. But unfortunately, that's what most doctors do. If CRP is good and you have high cholesterol, who cares? You're fine.
Is that the ratio that they compare with?
That's not a so ratio you can use real simply is you would take HDL, which is your good cholesterol, to triglyceride. Okay, HDL ratio to triglycerides, total triglycerides. That would tell you at basically what risk of heart disease you're at. The closer to a 1 ratio you are, the better. So that's something I would look at too. And if any of you guys get blood work, I'm happy to look at it and give you what my experience is with it. And it could maybe give you some questions that you might want to ask your doctor or find a new doctor. Big proponent of that. A lot of these doctors I don't trust. And a lot of them, they're not studying stuff like this. They're not. Charles Poliquin, who was another, he actually passed a few years ago too. He was another one of my mentors in the field. But he would always teach us when we were looking at blood work or whatnot, the norms, okay, where doctors typically, like vitamin D, for example, those are for your Homer Simpsons. Those are for the guys that are going to sit on the couch. They don't want to live life optimally. That's not what I want for my life. I want to be optimal, right? So they'll say, oh, you're normal, or oh, you're good. Most doctors aren't trying to push that envelope. So again, with vitamin D levels, you want that to be upper limit normal. Most people, and that should be on all your blood work when you go for a regular, even if you're not asking for it. Most people are below the bottom range on that, and doctors won't even address it. Vitamin D is a pro-hormone in your body. If most people realize it's not a vitamin, it's actually a hormone, they would take it a lot more seriously. And there's different ways that you would dose that, right? We want to dose that high. We want to get you to upper limit normal on that. What are the questions we got?
With the TRT dose, have you noticed, like, with people with chronic injuries, I think it takes recovery and then that's
It's a good question. So I dove a lot into this question. So I've ruptured both of my patellar tendons. When I did this one in 2012, I was using TRT, about 1 ml a week. So Dr. Getcher, who's my surgeon, he's a good friend of mine now, we were talking, saying, okay, what is such a weird, rare injury? What the heck would it cause this? Potentially, he goes, maybe the testosterone usage. So testosterone, right, if you're just doing that and doing too high of a dose by itself, okay, testosterone usage can degrade collagen synthesis, right? So like you'll see a lot of pro athletes, if they rupture a tendon, which is becoming more and more common, it's usually a very clear sign that they're using some type of anabolics, because what happens, the muscles become more bigger and more powerful. And again, those guys are the best of the best already. They can already output a lot of force. The force the muscles are producing, the tendons and ligaments can't keep up with. So as far as recovering from injury, it does help. It helps. It's great for your immune system. But there's testosterone, then you have all these derivatives, hundreds of them, right? Like you might have heard of Winstrol before, DECA. So when I did my first knee, again, speaking with Louis Simmons, I could only bend my knee to 72 degrees 4 months after the injury. So I was getting scared that I wasn't going to be, you remember that time when I did it? The first one, and I did the other one. But I was getting scared that I wasn't going to be able to use my leg again normally. So Louis Simmons he says, Kyle, go on equipoise, EQ. It's another form of testosterone. It's known as like an equine steroid for horses, right? They give it to horses. But it's based off human testosterone. So I did my research. EQ, and there's a couple other ones, but EQ will increase your collagen synthesis by up to 300%. So that is what you would want to use for coming back from injury. When guys would go to Europe, years pro athletes like Kobe would go there. So I'm going for platelet therapy or whatever. They're going there because they're much more liberal in Europe. They would use stuff like EQ. And that's like if you want to come back from a nasty soft tissue injury, That's what you got to use, stuff like that. Highly effective and very, again, even safer than regular testosterone on your body.
So you're just able to switch it out.
You can't get that from a doctor. Yeah, you can't get that from a doctor, yeah. So there's doctors basically going to prescribe you like 2 different forms potentially of testosterone, cypionate or an enanthate. Doesn't really matter which one, but that's typically what the doctors are going to prescribe you. If you start wanting to get into more exotic stuff and whatnot, you got to start doing your own research and looking around. Okay. What other questions we got, guys?
You touched a little bit on this, some of this before, but is there any pre-existing health conditions that would be affected or may prevent you from one being able to do this?
The only thing I would look at is pre-existing heart condition, potentially over 65 years old. But even then, it's a very low percentage. But I would talk to your doctor about it, right? I would talk to your doctor and see what they say about it, because you could always start a real low dose. But as far as exacerbating any other conditions in the body, none that I know of, and I've studied this a lot, none that I've come across. Testosterone, it's kind of like fasting, right? There's so many health benefits to it, and there's a lot of negative health benefits to having low testosterone, even as far as heart disease, that I think any risk the rewards far outweigh. But none that I know of, Jim, besides that. Any other questions, guys? So you guys, if you want my number, or if you don't have it, just take a picture of that. Dr. Kuda, you can look him up. Tell him you're my friend if you go see him. And reach out if you have any questions, if this is a road you want to go down. I'm telling you, if you go down this road, your life is going to get better. I can guarantee you that. You will get better as a man. Okay? All right.
Is this presentation available online?
Yeah, I think it's Facebook Live, yeah. So I'll download it and then we'll probably upload it to YouTube or something and then send it out. And then feel free to share it with anybody or rewatch it again. Okay? All right, guys, thanks for coming out. You're welcome.
Kyle?
Yeah, man, how you been?